A billionaire who fell in love with a delivery girl and hid the truth until their wedding day. A love story with a billion secrets. A friend with a hidden agenda. The altar will be the stage for the truth. You think you know what's going to happen? Think again. You're listening to Triumph Tales. Let this story move you. October 12th, 2023. The digital world, a constant hum of information and speculation, suddenly amplified. Headlines, bold and invasive, clawed their way onto every screen, every newsfeed, every printed page that still dared to exist. Tech billionaire weds delivery girl in secret ceremony. The words themselves seemed ripped from the pages of a fantastical romance, a modern-day fairy tale spun in the heart of a cynical world. But the glittering surface hid a truth far more complex, far more fragile. What the breathless public didn't know, what the carefully curated images of wedded bliss concealed, was a foundation built on a lie. Not a fleeting, insignificant falsehood, but a lie of such magnitude, so deeply woven into the fabric of their burgeoning relationship, that it was destined to unravel under the scrutinizing gaze of 300 unsuspecting guests on what should have been their happiest day. This is the intricate, improbable, and ultimately heartbreaking story of how it happened. Relentlessly rainy night in Chicago. The polished chrome and hushed elegance of an upscale high-rise lobby. Water streamed down the towering glass facade, blurring the city lights into hazy streaks. Inside, in the opulent warmth of his penthouse suite, Jason Carter, 28, the visionary, CEO of Nexatech, his net worth a staggering $2 billion, a figure that often felt as abstract as the algorithms he commanded, stood by the panoramic window. His gaze, usually sharp and focused on market trends and technological innovations, was drawn to the street below. He watched, a detached observer in his own gilded cage, as a lone figure braved the downpour. Lucy Bennett, 24, a pragmatic young woman whose life was a constant negotiation between bills and deadlines, currently employed as a DoorDash driver, hurried towards the building, a thermal bag clutched protectively against her chest. Rain plastered strands of her dark hair to her forehead and dripped from the edges of her worn jacket. The cheap plastic poncho she wore offered minimal resistance to the deluge. Tonight's tips were crucial. Her mother's medication wasn't getting any cheaper. The automatic doors slid open, and Lucy stepped into the lobby's sterile grandeur, leaving a small puddle of rainwater on the polished marble floor. The doorman, a man whose starched uniform seemed to repel anything less than perfection, took one look at her sodden appearance and held up a dismissive hand. Doorman said, "Hold it right there. You can't come in here dripping like that." Lucy's shoulders slumped slightly. This wasn't the first time her job had led to such condescending encounters. "I'm just here to deliver to Mr. Carter. Sushi order," Lucy said. "Doorman, Mr. Carter doesn't accept deliveries from—" "Well, look at you. Use the service entrance in the back." Just as Lucy's frustration began to simmer, a voice, calm and authoritative, cut through the tense air. "Jason," from the far end of the lobby. "It's—" "All right, Robert, she's with me." The doorman's rigid posture softened instantly. Jason, impeccably dressed even in the casual confines of his home, approached them. Lucy, surprised, looked up at him. He was taller than she'd imagined, with eyes that seemed to hold a thoughtful intensity. "Jason," to Lucy, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Sorry about that. Robert can be particular." Lucy, shaking her head, trying to brush some of the water from her face. "It's fine. Happens all the time. Just trying to make a living." Jason reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick wad of $100 bills. He peeled off 5 and pressed them into her hand. "Jason, here, for your trouble and for braving this weather." Lucy stared at the unexpected windfall. $500. It was more than she made in a good week. Lucy, oh no, sir, I couldn't. Jason, please, consider it a hazard pay. And listen, I'm just the building handyman. Name's Jake. Glad you could make it. That sushi smells amazing. The lie slipped out effortlessly, a spontaneous fabrication born of a sudden, inexplicable impulse. He didn't want her to see him as the untouchable billionaire whose life existed on a different plane. He just wanted to talk to her. Lucy, her skepticism momentarily overridden by the sheer generosity, managed a small, grateful smile. Lucy, thank you, Des. Jake. She handed him the sushi, the warmth of the container a small comfort in the chilly lobby. As she turned to leave, she fumbled in her pocket for a pen and scribbled her number on the back of the receipt. She hesitated for a moment, then placed it on top of the sushi container. Lucy, in case you ever need a good electrician or, another delivery. She gave him a quick, almost shy smile and then hurried back out into the rain. Jason watched her go, the image of her determined figure disappearing into the downpour, lingering in his mind. He picked up the receipt, his fingers tracing the hastily written digits. Suddenly, his phone buzzed insistently in his pocket, a jarring intrusion into the unexpected quiet. He pulled it out, the screen flashing with urgent notifications. Mr. Carter, we have a situation. The Tokyo merger, it's falling apart. They're pulling out. Jason stared at the phone, the weight of his real life crashing back down on him. The delicate possibility that had just flickered to life in the lobby felt fragile, almost impossible. Hours later. Akit 2. The lie grows, driven by an impulse he couldn't quite explain, a desire to inhabit the same world, however briefly, as the woman who had braved the storm for his midnight craving. Jason found himself signing a lease on a small, unassuming apartment in the Bronx, a borough miles away from his pristine penthouse. He'd furnished it sparsely, deliberately stripping away the trappings of his wealth. To Lucy, should their paths cross again, he would remain Jake, the struggling electrician, his hands calloused not from boardrooms, but from wires and tools. He hadn't held in years. Fate, it seemed, was a mischievous orchestrator. A few days later, while Lucy was grabbing a quick coffee at a local bodega, she bumped into him. He was wearing jeans and a slightly worn t-shirt, a far cry from the tailored suits she'd briefly glimpsed in the high-rise lobby. Lucy, Jake, what are you doing all the way up here? Jason's mind raced, formulating a plausible lie in milliseconds. Jason, oh, hey Lucy, I actually just moved into this neighborhood. Found a cheaper place, closer to some potential clients. You know how it is. Lucy smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that made something shift within him. Lucy, yeah, I know exactly how it is. Welcome to the Bronx, Jake. Their conversations became more frequent. He'd run into her at the laundromat, the local grocery store, even the dog park where she sometimes walked her neighbor's chihuahua. He helped her carry groceries, fixed a leaky faucet in her cramped apartment, a task he surprisingly enjoyed, and listened intently as she spoke about her dreams of opening a small bakery, her worries about her mother's health, and the constant struggle to make ends meet. Lucy's roommate, MIA, 26, a sharp-tongued, fiercely protective friend with a vibrant energy that often clashed with Lucy's more reserved nature, regarded Jake with a healthy dose of suspicion. There was something about him, a subtle air of confidence that didn't quite align with his struggling electrician persona. MIA, one evening while Lucy was out on a delivery. So, this Jake, what's the deal with him? He just magically appears whenever you need help? Sounds a little too good to be true. Lucy, defensive. He's just being nice, Mia. He's a good guy, MIA. A good guy who just happens to live in the same neighborhood as you after delivering sushi to a billionaire. Downtown? Coincidence much? Let me just do a quick search. Jason Carter, See if our mysterious handyman bears any resemblance. Mia typed the name into her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Just as the search results began to populate the screen, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. Lucy, rushing in with a startled cry, had tripped, sending a mug of hot coffee cascading over Mia's open laptop. MIA, exasperated. Seriously, Lucy, my laptop. The moment of potential exposure was averted, lost in the immediate chaos of spilled coffee and frantic cleaning. Meanwhile, Jason's carefully constructed facade was beginning to feel increasingly precarious. His CFO, Mark, 40s, impeccably dressed, perpetually stressed, had finally managed to track him down. He found Jason in his cramped Bronx apartment, the contrast between his usual surroundings and this Spartan existence jarring. Mark, Jason, what in God's name are you doing here? The Dubai deal is hanging by a thread. They need your signature, your personal assurance. Jason pulled Mark into the tiny hallway, his voice low and urgent. Jason. Mark, you can't tell anyone I'm here. Not yet, Mark. Not tell anyone, Jason. The company's future is at stake. What is going on? Jason whispering. Just 1 more week. Give me 1 more week. I'll fly to Dubai then, I promise. Just trust me on this. Mark stared at him. A mixture of disbelief and concern etched on his face. He didn't understand what had gotten into his usually pragmatic boss. Mark, 1 week, Jason. That's all you have. Mark turned and left, the slam of the apartment door echoing the growing tension in Jason's carefully compartmentalized life. Later that night, Lucy sat at her small kitchen table, a stack of bills spread before her like a daunting battlefield. Her brow was furrowed with worry, the weight of her mother's mounting hospital expenses pressing down on her. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the already grim figures on the page. AC3, Love versus Reality. A quiet rhythm began to develop in their unlikely relationship. Jason, as Jake, became a constant presence in Lucy's life, a source of unexpected support and genuine connection. He'd offer to help with errands, always finding subtle ways to ease her financial burden without revealing his true identity. He'd lend her money for groceries, always refusing to take it back. He'd even started leaving anonymous cash payments at the hospital for her mother's care, attributing it to a community fund. One afternoon, Lucy confided in him about the overwhelming hospital bills, the fear of losing her mother. Jason listened intently, his heart aching with a guilt that was becoming increasingly difficult to bear. The next day, he made a phone call, a swift, decisive action that resulted in Nexatech acquiring the struggling hospital where Lucy's mother was being treated. He ensured her mother received the best possible care, all while maintaining the illusion of being a struggling electrician offering what little support he could. Their connection deepened, blossoming amidst shared laughter and quiet moments of understanding. Lucy found herself drawn to Jake's kindness, his genuine interest in her life, a stark contrast to the superficial interactions she often encountered. Jason, in turn, found a sense of peace and authenticity in Lucy's world, a world far removed from the pressures and complexities of his own. He was falling in love, deeply and unexpectedly, with the woman who saw him not as a billionaire, but as simply Jake. One evening, while tidying up Jason's small apartment, Lucy opened a drawer in his makeshift desk. Her eyes fell upon a sleek black envelope. Inside, nestled against a velvet lining, was a private jet ticket. The name printed on the ticket was stark and undeniable. Carter J. Her breath caught in her throat. She stared at the ticket, her mind reeling. Carter J.? It couldn't be a coincidence. She remembered Mia's near discovery, the fleeting image of search results on her laptop screen. When Jason returned, she held out the ticket, her voice trembling slightly. Lucy, Jake, who is this? Why do you have a private jet ticket with the name Carter J? Jason's face paled. He hadn't expected her to find it. He scrambled for an explanation, his carefully constructed lie teetering on the brink of collapse. Jason, that's a client's. For a job I was supposed to do out of state. It fell through. I just haven't thrown it away yet. His explanation sounded weak, even to his own ears. Lucy looked at him, her eyes searching his, a flicker of doubt clouding her trust. She almost believed him. She wanted to believe him. Then, a notification popped up on her phone. A news alert. She clicked on it, her eyes widening in disbelief. As a grainy paparazzi photo filled the screen, the headline screamed, "Missing billionaire spotted in Bronx diner." The photo, though slightly blurry, was undeniably him. Him sitting across from her at their favorite local diner, laughing. Lucy looked up at Jason, the jet ticket still clutched in her hand. Her expression was unreadable, but she said nothing. She simply closed her hand around the ticket, her silence more damning than any accusation. C. 4. Wedding Day. Disaster. The day of the wedding dawned with an unexpected warmth, a deceptive calm before the storm. The small backyard of Lucy's modest apartment building had been transformed with string lights and borrowed flowers, a testament to the love and support of her close-knit community. Lucy, radiant in a simple white dress, walked down the makeshift aisle, her eyes locked on Jason, who stood waiting for her, a nervous but hopeful smile on his face. As the officiant began the ceremony, a sense of fragile joy filled the air. But as he reached the point of asking if anyone objected, Lucy's voice, clear and unwavering, cut through the quiet anticipation. "Lucy, wait!" The small gathering fell silent, all eyes turning to her. Jason's smile faltered, a knot of apprehension tightening in his stomach. "Lucy," her voice filled with a quiet intensity, "you're not Jake, the struggling electrician, are you? You're Jason Carter, the billionaire. You own the hospital where my mother is being treated. That client's jet. It was yours, our entire relationship. Was it ever real, or was it just some elaborate game?" The truth hung heavy in the air, a palpable weight that suffocated the festive atmosphere. Gasps rippled through the small crowd. Jason's carefully constructed world was crumbling around him. He looked at Lucy, his eyes filled with a desperate plea for understanding. "Jason, Lucy, please, let me explain. I was going to tell you tonight, after the ceremony, because I sold Nexatech, every share, everything I owned. I sold it to buy your mother's hospital, for you, so she would have the best care, so you wouldn't have to worry." His confession hung in the air, a shocking revelation that was meant to be an act of love, but instead felt like another layer of deception. Final twist. Flashback. A few weeks earlier, Lucy sat in a small, dimly lit office across town. Across from her sat MIA, not as a carefree roommate, but as a sharp, professional private investigator, a digital recorder resting on the table between them. "Lucy, so you're saying Jason's rivals hired you to dig up dirt on him?" MIA, "That's right. They suspected something was off with his recent behavior. The sudden move to the Bronx, the unexplained absences from the office. They wanted to know what he was up to." Lucy, "And you agreed? You pretended to be my roommate, MIA? It was a job, Lucy, and honestly, I started to feel bad about it. He seemed genuinely smitten with you. That's why I tried to show you the search results that night. I wanted you to know the truth before things went too far." Lucy, "So, you knew all along?" MIA, "I pieced it together. The jet ticket, the way he always seemed to have just enough cash. It didn't add up with the struggling electrician story. I was waiting for the right moment to tell you everything." End flashback. Back in the stunned silence of the backyard, the sound of approaching sirens grew louder. Two unmarked police cars pulled up to the curb, officers stepping out with a determined air. "Police officer Mia Rodriguez, you're under arrest for corporate espionage and conspiracy to commit fraud." As the police officers led a pale and handcuffed Mia away, Jason stood frozen, a whirlwind of emotions crashing through him. The shock of Mia's betrayal, the confirmation that Lucy knew all along. It was overwhelming. But in the midst of the chaos, a cold realization struck him like lightning. While he had strived to buy love and truth, fate was showing him that trust, once broken, was perhaps the most precious and non-negotiable asset of all. His eyes met Lucy's, who watched him with a complex mixture of pain, disappointment, and a profound sadness. There was no anger in her gaze, only a devastating stillness that pierced Jason's heart more than any accusation. He had hoped that his final sacrifice, selling everything he owned, would be enough to redeem him, to show the depth of his feelings. But the truth was that he had built their relationship on a foundation of deceit, and the consequences of that choice were now unfolding in a painful and public way. A heavy silence hung over the small group of guests who watched the scene in shock and confusion. The dream of a happy wedding had shattered into fragments of lies and shocking revelations. The soft music that had played moments before now seemed like a funeral dirge for a love that perhaps had never truly existed in its purest form. Jason took a hesitant step towards Lucy, his hand extended in a silent gesture of pleading, but she recoiled slightly, a small movement yet laden with meaning. The distance between them, which he had desperately tried to bridge with his schemes, now seemed insurmountable. In that instant, under the still, surprisingly blue sky of that fateful day, Jason Carter, the man who could buy almost anything, finally understood the depth of his loss. He had tried to manipulate destiny, to mold reality to fit his desires. But love, truth, and trust were not commodities that could be acquired with money or artifice. And as the police sirens faded into the distance, taking with them Mia's web of secrets and deceptions, Jason realized that the price of his lie might be the one thing he would never be able to pay: the heart of the woman he loved. The tale of a billionaire and a delivery girl ended there, not with a passionate kiss, but with the painful realization that some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt.